You know, some stories aren't just read, they're fought over. Seriously, they become these cultural battlegrounds for the biggest ideas you can think of. We're talking freedom, revolution, empire. And you'd be hard-pressed to find a story in the English language that's been a fiercer battleground than John Milton's 17th century epic, Paradise Lost. So let's get into it. Okay, so to really get a grip on this battle, we've got to start with the man himself. Because long after he was gone, John Milton wasn't just some poet people read in school. No, he became a full-blown hero, a symbol for a whole new generation of revolutionaries. And this quote from Percy Shelley in 1821, it just perfectly captures this huge shift in thinking. For the Romantic poets, guys like Shelley, Milton was way more than a writer. He was a political icon. They looked at his life, at his work, and saw a total rebellion against the power of kings and the church. Just think about the big names here. Wordsworth, Blake, Shelley. These guys were basically the rock stars of their day. They were caught up in this radical new way of thinking, fired up by the revolutions in America and France. And they looked back like 150 years and saw Milton as one of their own. Wordsworth was literally calling out to his spirit to come save England. Blake saw him as a kindred spirit, a fellow revolutionary. And Shelley took it a step further. He saw Milton's Satan as the original romantic rebel, the ultimate hero who famously said he'd rather reign in hell than serve in heaven. So this is the central puzzle, isn't it? How on earth did a religious poem from the 1600s, a story about Adam and Eve, angels, demons, the whole shebang, turn into a political manifesto for radicals who wanted to burn the old world down? All right, to find the answer, we've got to look inside the poem itself. And the first thing that hits you is just the sheer scale of it all. This is not just a story. It's a full-on cosmic saga. Milton paints this incredible picture of a universe at war. You've got Satan's epic rebellion with a third of all angels. You've got this almost democratic-style council in hell, where the fallen angels are debating what to do next in their shiny new capital, Pandemonium. And then there's a war so massive, it literally shakes the foundations of heaven. And it's right in the middle of all this chaos that a brand new world gets created, with Adam and Eve right at the heart of it. Okay, so with that epic backdrop in your head, let's dig into the first major interpretation that took Paradise Lost and turned it into a political document, a foundational story for entire nations even. So this first take comes from something called the Whig view of history. And the basic idea is this. History isn't just a bunch of random stuff happening. No, it's a story with a point, an inevitable march forward towards more freedom, more progress, and more parliamentary government. And believe me, this was a super powerful idea back in 19th century England and America. So you can see how this idea just built momentum. Fast forward to the 19th century, and you have these super influential historians like Thomas Babington Macaulay. They look back at Milton's era and completely reframe it. The English Civil War, that wasn't just some messy conflict. Oh no, that was a glorious and necessary step on the road to liberty. And Milton, the rebel poet, he became a star player in this grand story of national progress. And this quote really shows you just how powerful that whole narrative became. This Whig version of Milton's time got shipped over to America, and it became a vital, early chapter in their own story of freedom. The poem wasn't just a poem anymore. It was part of a national myth. But right when that interpretation seemed set in stone, a second, much more challenging reading started bubbling up. A reading that looks at the exact same poem and sees something completely different. And this new reading asks a really tough question. Is Paradise Lost actually a simple story about freedom, or is it way more complicated? Is it maybe tangled up in the language and ideas of empire and colonial expansion that were all around Milton when he was writing? So this sets up a pretty stark contrast, right? On one side, you've got the Whig view. It's a story of righteous rebellion and freedom. And on the other, a post-colonial view. It's a story that's deeply interwoven with the language of colonization. Two totally opposite ways of reading the exact same poem. So, where does this radical new reading even come from? Well, the evidence isn't in the big epic battles. It's hidden in the poem's smallest details, in specific word choices that you might just read right over. Let's look at this passage for a second. This is the moment right after the fall when Adam and Eve realize they're naked and rush to cover themselves up. Milton says they use leaves from a fig tree, a type that's known to Indians in Malabar or Deccan, in India. On the surface, it just seems like a little descriptive detail, right? But is it? Well, not so fast. See, post-colonial critics jump on this. They point out that the word Indian itself was basically a huge historical mistake, right? It started with Columbus, who thought he'd landed in the East Indies. So in just that one single word, Milton is layering the East, India, on top of the West, the Americas, and all of a sudden, the biblical fall of man, the very origin of shame and guilt, is tied directly to the geography of colonization. It's kind of mind-blowing. And it doesn't even stop there. In the very next line, Milton describes the leaves as being as broad as an Amazonian targe, which is just a type of shield. Again, seems like a simple comparison. But that word, Amazonian, it's brilliantly ambiguous. Is he talking about the mythical female warriors from Greek legends, who were famous for fighting against patriarchal empires? Or is he talking about the peoples of the Amazon River in America, who were at that time being discovered by Europeans? The text plays with both meanings, and in doing so, it links the fall of man to both the idea of resisting empire and the corruption that comes with colonial encounters. It's incredibly complex. So, okay, we're left with these two completely clashing interpretations. Is it a story of pure freedom, or is it a story tangled up with empire? What are we supposed to make of all this? I mean, what's the point of this huge, centuries-long fight over one poem? Well, here's the thing. The real genius of a masterpiece like Paradise Lost isn't that it has one single correct meaning. Not at all. Its power is that it works like a mirror. It's so complex, so ambiguous, that it can't help but reflect the values, the fears, and the political obsessions of whatever society is reading it at the time. And that's exactly what we've seen, right? The Romantics looked into that mirror and saw a call for rebellion. The Whig historians saw a blueprint for how their nations came to be. And today, post-colonial critics see a cautionary tale about empire. The poem itself stays the same, but we change. And because of that, with every new generation, the battle for what it all means starts all over again. Which kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. What a story like Paradise Lost really shows us is that the big stories we tell about our past are never really finished. They're not just facts in a book. They're active, living arguments about who we are right now and who we want to become. So that really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What are the stories from our past that we are still fighting over today?